Hello everyone, my name is Elliot Newton, I'm the Biodiversity Officer for Kingston Council, and welcome to the next episode of Reading Nature. And these are sessions that we're running with the library service to try and get you outside, even in these wintry, colder months, to go and explore our greener and wilder spaces and learn about the amazing wildlife and natural heritage that we have right on our doorstep. So when you're walking around, you can try and work out and understand some of the wildlife that we actually are so lucky to have living around us. And today we're in a very special place. We're in the Kingston Cemetery. And a lot of people might not consider cemeteries for being places for wildlife, but they are of course very important for people, but they're really important for all sorts of wildlife populations, and that is across the whole of the UK. And for Kingston specifically, this is a really important big site that we have quite near the town centre. It's 32 acres in size, so it's really quite big, and it's home to all sorts of habitats, from grasslands, sort of semi-improved grasslands which are full of wildflowers. We have veteran trees and scrub, and it's based right on the banks of the Hogs Mill, so it's really important for sort of not just the wildlife very locally, but as part of the wider ecological network that makes it, which is so important in Kingston. And the sort of species that you can find here, we have all sorts of birds, so it's a really good place for green woodpeckers and song thrushes. It's really good for bats at night, especially in the summertime, and also reptiles like slow worms live here. But we're here to tell you today about one of the most amazing sort of organisms that live here, and that is fungi. And fungi are somewhat overlooked species, or somewhat overlooked, but they are actually an incredible kingdom in their own right. So across the world we have maybe about over 5 million species of fungi, which is absolutely incredible, and that they express the diversity of any kingdom. So the smallest sort of species of fungi that we have are sort of the small microbial yeasts, which we have to see underneath a microscope, and they go up to species as big as what we call the honey fungus, which is out in California, which has probably got a surface area of about 10 square kilometers, and it's probably about 8,000 years old. So they really have an incredible diversity of forms and structures. And there still is so much that we don't know about fungi. So of the about 5 million species that we've got sort of potentially across the planet, only about 10% of those have been sort of scientifically described and recorded. So about 90% of them. So there's still so much that we need to learn about fungi. We've only recorded about 10% of all the fungi that we have living on the planet. And we think that there's at least about 6 fungi species to every plant species. That gives you some idea about how many there are across the entirety of the planet. And they're an incredibly important organism. Without fungi, we would not have life as we know it living on the earth. They're really important for plants. For example, we think about 90% of our plants depend on fungi relationships for their own survival. So when most people think about fungi, they think about mushrooms, because these are the things that we can actively see when we're walking around. But this is only a small glimpse into the amazing world of fungi. And what mushrooms and toadstools are, these are the sort of reproductive elements of fungi. So they come up for maybe just a few days in a year, and the autumn time is the best time of year to see them. And this is the way in which the mushroom, or the fungi, is spreading its spores and how it's trying to disperse itself across the environment. It's very similar to how a tree produces fruits and for its reproductive mechanism. So mushrooms are the fruit of the fungi world. But the mushrooms, as I say, are just a small glimpse into the incredible world of fungi. The real magic happens right beneath our feet underground. So all fungi have sort of these mycelial networks, which are underground, these incredible living webs of life, made up of these small strands called hyphae. And just to give you an idea about how much hyphae we have across the planet, if you just took the top 10 centimetres of soil across the globe, and you've got all these strands of hyphae, and put them in one long line, you'd probably reach halfway around the entire of the galaxy. So that gives you some idea of how much hyphae there is living right below our feet. So it really is a world that we just are learning about, but it is so important, but it is absolutely incredible. You get a sense of sort of vertigo when you're walking around, because you just realise there's this incredible life systems that are below our feet all the time. And they're really important, as I say. So for example, these mycelial networks will help work with plants to give them nutrients such as phosphates and nitrates, which are really important to their growth, and especially in sort of woodland environments, we have these incredible mycorrhizal relationships where the hyphae and the mycelial network integrates with the roots of trees, so it helping to give them nutrients, but also more interestingly is how people think they can actually help trees and organisms communicate with each other by sort of sending information. So it's a very interesting way in which, you know, communication can happen in the natural world. And it's actually been given the term the Wood Wide Web, similar to how we call the World Wide Web the internet and how humans communicate across the globe, sharing information and connecting ourselves. This mycelial mycorrhizal network is very similar in sort of the natural sense, and we're just learning more and more about it all the day, just to try and understand how important it is. But let's bring it back to Kingston, into the cemetery where we are right now, and this is one of the best places in Kingston for our grassland species of fungi, and the mushrooms that we can sort of see here in the autumn months are absolutely incredible. And some of the diversity of species that we have here, one species that has been recorded here quite a lot are WAXCAPS, and WAXCAPS are a species that are very, very much associated with our grasslands, and they're called WAXCAPS because they come up in the sort of paracel of the mushroom, the glistening cap as at the top as a quite a glistening waxy sort of shape, colour, and they are also sort of referred to as sort of the rubies and the jewels of our meadows sometimes. So, and the sort of species that we can record here, we've got things like parrot waxcap and yellow waxcap. So just to give you some idea of just the waxcaps that we have here. Another type of species that we've got recorded here are our ink caps, and one particular species is glistening ink cap. And an interesting thing about ink caps is when you actually take the mushroom and you leave it to sort of desiccate, or sort of in a room, for example, and you let it dissolve and sort of break down, it will turn into sort of this viscous black glue, and you can use it, and that was used for creating ink, and so people used it to write and create illustrations, so that's why ink caps are called ink caps. And another sort of grassland species of fungi that we have living here is probably what I think one of the most beautiful organisms that we have living on the planet, and it is called meadow coral. And meadow coral have these amazing sort of fiery orangey yellow sort of fronds which are very similar to the coral that we have underneath our oceans and in our seas. Then if we go to the more sort of gravelly parts of the cemetery, or even sort of around the paths and stuff like that, we can get species such as orange peel fungus. And orange peel fungus, as the name sort of gives away, it looks very similar to sort of this bright orange peels that you'd get that you can see on fruit. So again, it provides real colour. And another important sort of association or fungi that we have that can live and thrive in the cemetery, especially on our built environments and our gravestones, is lichens. And lichens are a sort of a symbiotic relationship, which is a partnership between fungi species and algae species where they come and work together for mutual benefit, and they create lichens. And lichens are a really important organism on our planet because they actively help to break down rocks and bring those nutrients into the soil. So they mobilise those nutrients for use, and that is part of why life can exist on our planet, because we can turn these rocks and try and get those nutrients coming into our soil. So lichens are a really important species, and you can find an incredible variety of lichens on our gravestones and our older sort of structures in the cemetery. So hopefully we've given you some indication of the amazing world that lives just beneath our feet. So next time you're walking around, don't just look up and around, but also think about the incredible species that might be just living underneath your feet.